Yo, back once again, man. I felt the need to go ahead and drop this, man. Cause these knucklehead haters on the internet, man. They keep trying to steal the legacy of Luzia. You know what I mean? Trying to steal her away, trying to make her be, you know, Siberian. No disrespect. You know what I mean? No disrespect to any population group, man. But that's not what she was, and it is clear that is not what she was. So anyway, man, what prompted this? I'm gonna show you guys what prompted this, man. This demonstration, man. So as you can see here, what the usual suspects are trying to do. I've already covered this in prior presentations, but I'm gonna isolate it, focus on it, highlight it, put it under the microscope even more. And I'm gonna make it real short and simple. Here, they're trying to say um, the main lineages of Luzia and Lagoa Santa groups include A2B2C and D4H3A for the mitochondria, um, YDNAQ1B1A, 1A dash. You can see it on the screen. My response, once again, Luzia was never sequenced. These mtDNA share markers with L. Kennewick man was YDNA Q1, Q3, but was heavily admixed. I'm gonna eat y'all up when I'm done with Kennewick man part 3. So I'm talking a little trash, man. I'll admit that, man. I'm in here. I'm in here talking mad trash to these guys, man. But you know, if you interacted with these guys on the daily, you would know why. See what his response is right here. This argument doesn't hold up to genetic evidence. They talk so confident, man. First, Luzia, it's true for many years, Luzia herself had not been successfully sequenced, but genetic studies of ancient individuals from the same Lagoa Santa population showed they were closely related to indigenous Americans and descended from the founding populations of the Americas. The old claim that Luzia represented a separate African or Austro-Melanesian population was based on skull morphology, not genetics, and has not been supported by genomic data. He says, second, sharing a few mtDNA markers with haplogroup L does not make a lineage African. Haplogroups are defined by entire sets of mutations, not isolated markers. Many mutations are shared across different branches or arise independently, so pointed out to a handful of similarities is not evidence of African ancestry. He's generally correct about that. I got to give it to him. However, in the Kennewick study done in 2018, it shared a much stronger relationship than just, one or two markers. The significant portion of Kennewick man's genome was African and Melanesian. So, in that same study, they were highlighting the fact that um, these these S&Ps are not significant to contemporary Native Americans. They're found in many different populations, and um, uh, one of uh, one of the S&Ps were particularly found in the L. Now, that alone doesn't make it significant. What made it significant is because they were trying to look for explanations. When I say they, I'm talking about the two geneticists that you know um, performed that study in 2018 on Kennewick man's DNA. They were looking for explanations as to explain why these African signatures and signals, or autosomes, so to speak, um, were so heavily admixed in the Kennewick man in terms of his African, archaic African, some of his genome. Well, El Moran was compared to modern, West Africans as well. So they were trying to, explain these phenomenons as far as what they perceive. So it's much deeper than that. I ain't gonna go into that right now. You guys can check, the episode on that. But to keep going, third, Kennewick man, he carried YDNA Q13, a lineage strongly associated with indigenous peoples of the Americas, and mtDNA X2A. a Native American Pacific branch. His genome-wide DNA showed that he was more closely related to modern Native Americans than to any other populations. Uh, Claims that he was heavily admixed are not supported by published genomic data. He's wrong. He's going by what's widely accepted. Once again, the DNA series that I did on Kennewick Man was that door was opened up by two um, molecular geneticists. So they keep parroting, what the academic gatekept community wants to be parroted. These guys don't read enough to really, contend with me, in my opinion. Claims that he was heavily admixed are not supported by the published genomic data. Detected contamination was minor and modern, now not evidence of ancient African ancestry. In short, neither Luzia nor Kennewick Man provides evidence that the earliest Americans were Africans. The strongest evidence we have, why ancient DNA places them with the ancestry of indigenous peoples of the Americas. Again, they have to, they're very pleased to only have to, deal with the results of genome-wide data, which I explained before, is an average of fast-acting SNPs, which anybody can share. You could be completely two different populations. You can share fast-acting SNPs. It'll make you look closer related than what you truly are. And this is why the morphology doesn't match the DNA typically, because they're using the fast SNP approach. And so therefore, the ancestral components of DNA gets convoluted. But anyway, let's go ahead and shut this Luzia thing down, man. That was my main point, because these guys are just not honest, man. So let me go back and get this on the screen. I'm gonna take this down. Yeah, we're gonna get them right today, man. Enough of this shucking and jiving, man. I'm gonna show you how mainstream academia I'm gonna show you what they do. And I'm gonna read this study here. I want to zoom this in. That's too much. I think that's good enough there. Let me see how I look on the screen. I think that's good enough. If you guys click on that box, let me see how this looks. Yeah, it don't make a difference. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and read it. So, what mainstream academia is doing, they're not necessarily lying to the public, because, you know, some specimens in South America. Now, mind you, what I'm about to read from these specimens here are not the same site as Luzia. I think they're of significant distance to where Luzia was found. And maybe I might do a part 2 on this and really go into detail about the difference in distance between the two sites. But I'm gonna read this article here, which is published August the 2nd in 2023. These are the type of articles these people on the internet are giving themselves in terms of ammunition to run with this false narrative. And I'm gonna show you how slick they are with the wording in this article. Let me show y'all. Okay, it says an article published in Nature Ecology and Evolution reveals that Luzio, do you see that? Okay, you see the wordplay. Luzio, which is very close to Luzia, right? This is a male. The oldest human skeleton found in Sao Paulo state, uh, Brazil, was a descendant of of the ancestral population that settled the Americas at least 16,000 years ago and gave rise to all present-day indigenous people such as the Tupi. All right, so let me read this article, man, so I can demonstrate how academia convolutes evidence and twists evidence to make it appear one way when it's truly not. Um, it says this article was published in Nature Ecology and Evolution. Published in Nature Ecology and Evolution reveals that Luzio, again, the name Luzio, the oldest human skeleton found in Sao Paulo state, was a descendant of of the ancestral population uh, that settled the Americas at least 16,000 years ago and gave rise to all present-day indigenous people such as the Tupi. Now, according um, to historical data, um, you know, going with the one migrational story out of Beringia into the Americas, they didn't reach North America, until um, 12 to 13,000 years ago. Now, if it's coming from a one migrational movement, like they say that it is, then this is extremely early to be in South America because they are supposed to have entered out of Beringia. But anyway, based on the largest set of Brazilian archaeological genomic data, the study reported in the article also offers an explanation for the disappearance of the oldest coastal communities who built the icons of Brazilian archaeology known as the Sambaquas, huge mounds of shells and fish bones used as dwellings, cemeteries, and territorial boundaries. Archaeologists often refer to these monuments as shell mounds or kitchen middens. Now, we all know who the mound building culture is, and once again, they're trying to assimilate um, another group of people into this culture that doesn't belong to them. You know, that might sound racist to some, but you're welcome to feel however you want to feel. You know, because the same group of people that hollers racism, black people are racist for saying this, and black people are racist for saying that, is the same ones who will ignore every single historical chronicle piece of evidence describing Negroes over and over again in ancient America. Some of these anthropologists, especially in the 1800s, came out blatantly, and some even said that the entire continent in ancient times was entirely Negro. You know, they'll still twist that and say, Negro don't mean Negro. But anyway, after the Andean civilizations, the Atlantic coast Sambiquai builders were the human fit phenomenon with the highest demographic density in pre-colonial South America. They were the kings of the coast for thousands and thousands of years. They vanished. Huh? They vanished suddenly about 2,000 years ago. They always, trying to make it seem like they vanished, blah, blah, blah. Sure. I don't believe their story. Okay. Said Andres Menezes, Strauss, an archaeologist at the University of Sao Paulo's Museum of Archaeology and Ethnology and principal investigator for the study. The first author of the article is Tiogo Ferraz. The study was supported by FAPESP and conducted in partnership with the researchers of the University of Tübingen's Senckenberg Center for Human Evolution and Paleo Environment, Germany. The authors analyzed the genomes of 34 samples from four different areas of Brazil's coast. The fossils were at least 10,000 years old. They came from Sambequis and other parts of eight sites. This material included Luzio, Sao Paulo's oldest skeleton, found in Safaha River Mitten in Barbera de Igupwa Valley by a group led by Levi Faguti, a professor of MAE USP. The morphology of its skull is similar to that of Luzia. Okay, so clearly it's not Luzia. It's saying that it's similar to the oldest human fossil found to date in South America, dating from about 13,000 years ago. The researchers thought it might have belonged to a biologically different population from present day Amerindians who settled in what is now Brazil some 14,000 years ago. But it turns out they were mistaken. So let's read that again and unpack that statement. Okay, so it says this material included Luzio, Sao Paulo's Luzio, Sao Paulo's oldest skeleton, found in the Cefalenha River Mitten in the Rabira de Ilcapua Valley by a group led by Levi Faguti, a professor at MAE USP. The morphology of its skull is similar to that of Luzia, the oldest fossil found to date in South America, dating from about 13,000 years ago. The researchers thought it might have belonged to a biologically different population from present day Amerindians who settled in what is now Brazil some 14,000 years ago, but it turns out they were mistaken. Genetic analysis showed Luzio to be an Amerindian like the Tupi, Wuche, or Cherokee. That doesn't mean they are all the same, but from a global perspective, they are derived from a single migratory wave that arrived in Americas not more than 16,000 years ago. If there was another population here 30,000 years ago, it didn't leave descendants among these groups, Strauss said. Zio's DNA also answered another question. River mittens are different from coastal ones, so the find cannot be considered a direct ancestor of the huge classical Sambucas that appeared later. This discovery suggests there were two distinct migrations into the hinterland and along the coast. It says what happened to the Sambequai builders. Analysis of the genetic material revealed heterogeneous communities with cultural similarities but significant biological differences, especially between coastal communities in the southeast and south. Studies of craniomorphology conducted in the 2000s had already pointed to a subtle difference between these communities, and our genetic analysis confirmed it. Strauss said, we discovered that one of the reasons was these coastal populations weren't isolated but swapped genes with inland communities. Over thousands of years, this process must have contributed to the regional differences between the Sambiquas. Regarding the mysterious disappearance of the coastal civilization, compromising the first hunter-gatherers of the Holocene, analysis of the DNA samples clearly showed that, in contrast with the European Neolithic substitution of entire populations, what happened in this part of the world was a change of practices, with the design and construction of shell mittens and introduction of pottery by Sebekwai builders. For example, the genetic material found at Gaheti 4, the most emblematic site for the period, remains not of shells but of ceramics, and is similar to the classic Sambiquas in this respect. This information is compatible with the 2014 study that analyzed pottery shards from the Sambiquas and found that the pots in question were used to cook not domesticated vegetables but fish. They appropriated technology from the hinterland to process food that was already traditional there, Strauss said. Let's see if there's any more here. And so that's it, man. As you can see, they tried to, they included Luzia's name, and they're basically saying that the entire group, including Luzia, or at least they're trying to, people who read this article, they're trying to convolute it together because Luzia was mentioned, because it's saying that the morphology was similar, to Luzia. So they're taking that, and even, even Google, sometimes if you search it, will say that Luzia was sequenced. But as many know, um, um, her remains were burnt, in a suspicious museum fire. You know, you find that just a matter of coincidence. Hey, that's all fine and dandy. I don't, But anyway, her remains were burnt in a museum. They claim that enough of her remains still were intact enough to reconstruct uh, the um, the morphology, and that's where you're getting the circulation of the new image of Luzia circulating around the um, the internet. In addition to that, the claims of her being, DNA sequenced, the two together is what made that, that new photo image of Luzia, to make her look more smoothed out, so to speak, to make her look more contemporary and meridian. So yeah, these are the games that the academic community plays, but there is no genetic study that says that Luzia was genetically sequenced, but they'll continue to run with that narrative. And I just wanted to do my part in silencing that narrative. But anyway, man, good day to all. And it might be a part two, man, so I can go in more detail. I might research these groups that they're talking about and see how they were, historically described, so forth and so on. So as far as phenotype and whatever, because anytime you hear the word disappearance, you should suspect that there was some type of subjugation, mass murdering by European conquistadors, so forth and so on. I mean, because that's just the general, nature of the history concerning Americas, man. But anyway, that's it, man. I'm out of here.